started off with a 2-4 record, but in the meantime, Coach Lomax was receiving a lot of flack from the spectators in the bleachers, and also the players were challenging him in his mastery of the game. It's a wonder the roof didn't blow off the gym.
I know they encountered a lot of negativity from probably other people in the community and even people here in the school system saying, oh, you guys aren't going to do any better than you did last time, and you aren't, this new coach isn't any better than any of the other coaches you've ever had.
This team this year seemed like, you know what I'm saying, like we can go a lot of places. Last year we could have too, but it just seemed like we took it as a joke, you know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody just thought we was all that, whatever. Ain't nobody take things serious.
Mostly these kids have played together for 3 years now. Okay. You know, most of the kids are seniors, so they're realizing that if they play together, they're going to be awful hard to beat. If it's an individual thing, you know, where I'm going to get my points, I don't care about winning or losing.
Solo type team. Everyone was trying to do their own thing, and it wasn't working.
You know, they're going to get beat those nights.
Every coach knows that you have to win over your crew first before your crew will win a game for you on the court. And Coach Lomax is no stranger to winning over his players.
I've bumped heads with a lot of players, and that's part of the job. It goes with the territory. But you know when you're doing that, that everything that you're saying and everything that's being instilled into those young men is something positive.
There's a couple of things that, you know, we do in practice that a lot of players we don't like that much because it might have to do with a lot of running or anything. But I mean, it's just things that I guess we really have to do. And I mean, if that's what it takes to get to the stage, then I guess we have to do it.
Whenever you can run for 10 minutes solid and then do your sprints, then in the game you know you can play an 8-minute quarter solid and be able to give 100% at the end of the quarter. During that 4-game losing streak, there was a lot of dirty laundry aired, and a lot of those kids understood after that period of time that I wasn't really taking a whole lot of crap off anybody. I told them at that point, you know, the door's there, and if you feel like you need to walk through it, hey, do what you feel. But they understood then, and I understood that next day when all of them showed back up the next day that I didn't have any quitters on my hands. So that was something that's inspiring to me, and since that time we've all grown together, and I think that's what's accounted for that 13-game winning streak that we're in right now.
Now I guess we've refocused, and now we're really ready to play.
Over the years, the Capital District has been the toughest district in the region. Having a 13-0 run is a big deal, not only for the Warriors, but also for the competition.
You know, you see that commercial that say priceless. That's kind of what it is. I mean, if you just come out and play every game like it's your last, you know, you don't want to come out, you don't want to lose to anyone. You just want to come out and play your best game. Especially for the seniors, we don't want to go down, you know, as a losing team. So we just come out every day and just, you know, work our hardest. And if that makes us 13-0 to maybe 20-0, it just, you know, that's just how it is.
You know, it's constantly, it's like going that extra mile, even though you know you don't have to, or even if it's like just pushing yourself constantly. You know what I'm saying? Not giving up, you know, doing whatever you have to make sure that you get that final bucket at the end of the game.
Once we started to have more substance than just that sound that we were making before the game, that's when the turnaround really occurred.
Well, when we played Highland Springs here the first time, I stepped out the gym and I looked across on the other side, and Highland Springs was jumping up and they was hollering, hooping and hollering. Then I came back into the room and I said, this is our house. Whose house is this? I said, if you're going to give them our house, you might well give them the key.
When we beat Highland Springs the first time, that really motivated us. So from then on, we've just been beating people.
They are a lot more disciplined, and that comes with seasoning as well. They are a lot more mature this year. Bill Lomax has a great countenance on the sidelines, a calm demeanor. I love his court presence.
You can, you know, get wins over such successful coaches as Coach Richardson and Coach Lancaster at Varina and Highland Springs, who really dominated the district for the past probably decade. Then that gives those kids a lot of confidence. That gets people in the community knowing that you're for real and not taking you just as some guy that comes from a country school.
He's done an excellent job of getting them back together and showing them that they can win, and now they're playing with an awful lot of confidence.
Winning this year will set the precedence for next year and the year after. And it will also improve the camaraderie among the team, the community, and the administration. The true measure of Bill Lomax will be the success that he builds throughout his tenure.
Bob believed that to be a good coach, you had to be a good teacher.
He has been there for every kid that ever wanted to learn the game of baseball.
Not a Bobby Knight screamer, very calm.
His coaching style was so effective the kids didn't want to leave practice.
He has been an excellent father and husband and provider.
Bob Bralley was born and raised in Austinville, Virginia in Wythe County. As a young boy, he was stricken with rheumatic fever and kept him from playing sports. His love for baseball started when he was a 7th grader. Bob played baseball and basketball all 4 years in high school and football his last 2. He was the MVP for the school his junior and senior years, where he played all 3 sports at Jackson Memorial High School. Bob graduated from Emory and Henry, where he led all 4 years in baseball. But growing up, he had several mentors. That his father made the biggest impact.
But he taught me so much about the game. But the biggest thing I guess he taught me was when he came to my games, he could never find anything bad wrong.
One of the things I think that just bugged him to death that he couldn't stand was negativism, anything negative. He couldn't talk about it, couldn't dwell with it, and he wouldn't let you do it. He wouldn't let you do it as a coach. He wouldn't let players do it.
I remember one game I might have made 3 errors, struck out twice, and he could always find a positive thing, like that great tag I made on the guy running second base.
After graduating from Emory and Henry, Bob spent 5 years in the minors of the Mets and the Angels organization. It was there that he got his reputation for his trademark swing. The quick bat speed and the relaxed muscle made that ball go. And Bob was able to coach that same success with ball players, and that brand of baseball became insatiable.
We always had to worry about cutting off practice a half an hour earlier so we could get out on time, because they wanted one more round of ground balls, one more round, you know. I wanted to be at practice. I didn't want to leave practice. We would, Coach Bralley would always say, okay, y'all get 2 bunts, 10 swings. Well, you know, we'd be taking 20 swings. He'd say, you know, Hawthorne, how many swings you had? 7. They really wanted to stay there. They would have stayed there as long as we would have kept them there, because they loved it.
Every kid is like a puzzle, Bob says. When it comes to teaching, the pieces are there. You just have to find it. For Coach Bralley, his love for the game transcended to his kids, not only on the field, but also in the classroom.
On rainy days, we would go inside into the classroom, and we would study baseball, fundamentals. Hawthorne, you're playing right field, a man on first, base hit to you, what are you thinking? And we would go through situations. They didn't have as many interests as they are today. But hey, they could have made some other decisions.
Like the kids, Bob could have made other decisions as well, as opposed to going into baseball. But he had some great mentors and also went to workshops held by baseball greats like Ted Williams, Joe Torre, Ted Simmons, and Stokely Fulton. Closer to home, he took over the great baseball club from the master Gilley Sorrell. But he also inherited the consummate assistant, the man Bob says would make any head coach look good.
Bob believed that to be a good coach, you had to be a good teacher.
I always tell the kids I teach, if you can go teach somebody else the skill, you're going to learn more by teaching it than the person you taught.
We could leave the story in the baseball field, but we wouldn't be telling the whole story. Someone once said, behind every great man is a great woman. Bob Bralley could have just as well spoken those words.
it never occurred to me to do anything otherwise, other than support him and let him do what he needed to do.
With his wife Lib at home with the 2 children, Bob was able to concentrate on his life's calling. And sometimes that call would be so loud he couldn't hear the one that came from his own home.
He would be 9 o'clock p.m. before he got home. The kids would usually be awake just long enough to kiss him goodnight and watch him have his dinner. And sometimes he would bring 5 or 6 kids home with him for dinner or to study. I can think of several. I won't mention their names, but he would bring them home because they needed to pass tests the next day, and they would study. And he had a lot of parental support too, and I guess I drew some strength from that.
With his dedication to his students and Lib as the team cook, Bob had all the ingredients to become a champion. In his tenure as coach, he amassed a record of 157, 1 and 54 in his 14 years, earning him 8 district titles, 4 region titles, and 2 state final appearances, winning the state title in 1970 with a record of 17, 1 and 2. He stayed on another 14 years as the AD at Highland Springs until his retirement in 1993.
I've given up a lot to be able to do this, and sometimes maybe I've been giving up too much. Very fortunate. My wife raised the kids, and I hope that I'll be able to see my grandkids more. I've got 4 great grandkids. And
since 7th grade, he devoted his life to the game of baseball. Along the way, he won a state title. He's admired by his former players and peers, and loved by his wife and family who understood. We should all be that lucky.
Rudy's not a man of a lot of words. He does all the little things you need to do in the coaching business to be successful.
I love coming to school. In fact, the teachers, as a joke, gave me a flashlight one time because I got here before daylight, you know.
So many coaches today just want to do the X's and O's and want to show up on game day, but he does all the little details.
Born during the Great Depression, Glenn Rudacille learned early life's hard lessons. The impression left on him created a role model for the ages: dedication, commitment, and hard work.
The biggest thing about Rudy's coaching was his commitment to coaching. He was one that was an average player. I think he would be the first to admit that.
When Rudy deals with you, he wants you to think for yourself, and he wants you to earn your position, not only just as an athlete, but as a person.
He doesn't try to get fancy. He doesn't try to do elaborate things, but he dwells on the fundamental things that makes a player a good player.
And we had a thing going where, you know, if you weren't so good, you wanted to make the all-district warm-up team. You wanted to do good in warm-ups, man. You wanted to look great.
Glenn Rudacille taught as a coach what he learned as a young man growing up in Winchester, Virginia. He went to high school at Warren County High School, and although he had no formal training in coaching, Rudacille quickly imitated the stylings of his coach, Les Young, a man who got the most out of his kids. And Rudacille and the others were so taken by his rapport that the kids would go through the wall for him.
I know when we won a football game against Patrick Henry, and Rudy had left Patrick Henry to come to Varina, and I don't think he was treated too nicely up there. They lost our game. And we beat them, you know, and we were really psyched for that. We wanted to win the game because, you know, how dare you do that there, Coach? How dare you, you know?
In 47 years, Coach Rudacille has coached virtually every sport, starting back to the early days at Henry Clay High School, the predecessor to Patrick Henry High School. Then he moved to Varina, and as in all sports, Rudy has seen the changes. But what he's most concerned with is the devotions that students have for their school.
Now the pitchers have caught up with the hitters and are beyond the hitters now. That's why Randall Clary here and Nicky's been involved in so many one-run games. We've got the strong pitching. We're a little bit inadequate at the plate, and most of the times Nicky will lose because of a breakdown in the defense or something of that nature. But the pitching is way ahead of hitters now, and we're working at it to try to get those hitters back up, but it's been a hard job.
Yeah,
Athletics used to be the thing. When I was in school, earning your letter, putting it on a leather sweater or a leather jacket and walking around with pride and just being a part of that team. Now I question some of that, you know, whether we have that.
Some of the things kids do today, some of the liberties they are allowed today would not have been allowed in old school, and he is able to accept the way kids are today and yet impose his his way on them, and it's a good way.
I'll tell you, the man has changed from the same guy that, you know, would yell and tell you to do this, that, and the other, and he's changed his, and he was first to admit that, you know, as you go through the years, he's been able to communicate with young people.
Paying it forward. For 47 years, Glenn Rudacille has stepped in and out of the classrooms and playing fields doing the right thing. It takes a man of strong character to be consistent for so long. And the years have shown that if you work hard enough, sometimes life gives you a little payback.
Just this week, I got a letter from one of the kids that I'm coaching right now that kind of reinforced what I've been doing these 47 years has been worth it. The words that she wrote in that letter, getting a little bit emotional now, but anyway, the words that she wrote in that letter reinforced everything that I've been trying to do throughout all these years. I'm not perfect. I know I haven't been perfect. I know I've upset a lot of people, but I worked with some great coaches and some great kids, and just the word that she gave me. That was the second letter that I got from a player this year, and both of them to in effect the same thing.
He taught kids not to give up, that you don't quit. He's shown them that perseverance will help you become successful, even winning a state title. In turn, Coach Rudacille has been rewarded with the endearment of those he's touched.
Whether a coach likes it or not, they're going to be somewhat of a father figure.
A few years back, a kid by the name of Eric Clay quoted to the newspaper that I was a father-like figure to him, and they're the type of things that really have kept me going.
You're here with your coaches and your male teachers more than you are with your dad. And some people didn't have a dad, so you wanted to please them. You wanted to identify with them.
He has been the father figure to many of them. One of the moments I remember about Glenn, one night at a football game in Varina, we were outside the gates talking, and one of his former players came up and started talking to him. He had his little son with him, and he introduced his son. He said, "This is my coach. This is Coach Rudacille. This is my coach." And he was so proud to do this. He really, you could just see it all over him. It meant something to him to introduce his son to his coach. And I think Glenn's affected a lot of folks that way.
Well, I think it's just the fact that they know Rudy won't quit. Rudy has always been one to come early and to stay late and do what is necessary to do a good job in his commitment to coaching.
He would show you how to do it through hard work and through dedication.
Sometimes we're lucky enough to find our calling early in life and make the most of it. When you reach the end of that road, you'll look back and ask yourself.
The only question I have is, we keep our 3-year-old grandson 3 days a week, and it's a joy and a thrill to watch that youngster come off of the bottle, you know, take his first step, say his first word, and do all the little things that little people do growing up. And I'm afraid that that's some of the things that I miss with our 5 children. I do regret some of those early years of my youngsters that I missed. But I was spending time doing something that I loved doing. I loved coaching. I didn't mind coming to work, and I was giving that time, I guess, to other people's children, other parents. So I guess it all balanced out.
Rudy's not a man of a lot of words.
He does all the little things you need to do in the coaching business to be successful.
I love coming to school. In fact, the teachers, as a joke, gave me a flashlight one time because I got here before daylight, you know.
So many coaches today just want to do the X's and O's and want to show up on game day, but he does all the little details.
Born during the Great Depression, Glenn Rudacille learned early life's hard lessons. The impression left on him created a role model for the ages: dedication, commitment, and hard work.
The biggest thing about Rudy's coaching was his commitment to coaching. He was one that was an average player. I think he would be the first to admit that.
When Rudy deals with you, he wants you to think for yourself, and he wants you to earn your position, not only just as an athlete, but as a person.
He doesn't try to get fancy. He doesn't try to do elaborate things, but he dwells on the fundamental things that makes a player a good player.
And we had a thing going where, if you weren't so good, you wanted to make the all-district warm-up team. You wanted to do good in warm-ups, man. You wanted to look great.
Glenn Rudacille taught as a coach what he learned as a young man growing up in Winchester, Virginia. He went to high school at Warren County High School, and although he had no formal training in coaching, Rudacille quickly imitated the stylings of his coach, Les Young, a man who got the most out of his kids. And Rudacille and the others were so taken by his rapport that the kids would go through the wall for him.
I know when we won a football game against Patrick Henry, and Rudy had left Patrick Henry to come to Varina, and I don't think he was treated too nicely up there. They lost our game. And we beat them, and we were really psyched for that. We wanted to win the game because, how dare you do that there, Coach? How dare you?
In 47 years, Coach Rudacille has coached virtually every sport, starting back to the early days at Henry Clay High School, the predecessor to Patrick Henry High School. Then he moved to Varina, and as in all sports, Rudy has seen the changes. But what he's most concerned with is the devotions that students have for their school.
Now the pitchers have caught up with the hitters and are beyond the hitters now. That's why Randall Clary here and Nicky's been involved in so many one-run games. We've got the strong pitching. We're a little bit inadequate at the plate, and most of the times Nicky will lose because of a breakdown in the defense or something of that nature. But the pitching is way ahead of hitters now, and we're working at it to try to get those hitters back up. But it's been a hard job. Athletics used to be the thing when I was in school. Earning your letter, putting it on a leather sweater or a leather jacket, and walking around with pride and just being a part of that team. Now I question some of that, whether we have that.
Some of the things kids do today, some of the liberties they are allowed today would not have been allowed in old school, and he is able to accept the way kids are today and yet impose his his way on them, and it's a good way.
I'll tell you, the man has changed from the same guy that, would yell and tell you to do this, that, and the other, and he's changed and he'll be the first to admit that, as you go through the years, he's been able to communicate with young people.
Paying it forward. For 47 years, Glenn Rudacille has stepped in and out of the classrooms and playing fields doing the right thing. It takes a man of strong character to be consistent for so long. And the years have shown that if you work hard enough, sometimes life gives you a little payback.
Just this week, I got a letter from one of the kids that I'm coaching right now that kind of reinforced what I've been doing these 47 years has been worth it. The words that she wrote in that letter, getting a little bit emotional now, but anyway, the words that she wrote in that letter reinforced everything that I've been trying to do throughout all these years. I'm not perfect. I know I haven't been perfect. I know I've upset a lot of people, but I've worked with some great coaches and some great kids, and just the word that she gave me. That was the second letter that I got from a player this year, and both of them in effect, the same thing.
He taught kids not to give up, that you don't quit. He's shown them that perseverance will help you become successful, even winning a state title. In turn, Coach Rudacille has been rewarded with the endearment of those he's touched.
Whether a coach likes it or not, they're going to be somewhat of a father figure.
A few years back, a kid by the name of Eric Clay quoted to the newspaper that I was a father-like figure to him, and they're the type of things that really have kept me going.
You're here with your coaches and your male teachers more than you are with your dad. And some people didn't have a dad, so you wanted to please them. You wanted to identify with them.
He has been the father figure to many of them. One of the moments I remember about Glenn, one night at a football game at Varina, we were outside the gates talking, and one of his former players came up and started talking to him. He had his little son with him, and he introduced his son. He said, "This is my coach. This is Coach Rudacille. This is my coach." And he was so proud to do this. You could just see it all over him. It meant something to him to introduce his son to his coach. And I think Glenn's affected a lot of folks that way.
Well, I think it's just the fact that they know Rudy won't quit. Rudy has always been one to come early and to stay late and do what is necessary to do a good job in his commitment to coaching.
He would show you how to do it through hard work and through dedication.
Sometimes we're lucky enough to find our calling early in life and make the most of it. When you reach the end of that road, you'll look back and ask yourself.
The only question I have is, we keep our 3-year-old grandson 3 days a week, and it's a joy and a thrill to watch that youngster come off of the bottle, you know, take his first step, say his first word, and do all the little things that little people do growing up. And I'm afraid that that's some of the things that I miss with our 5 children. I do regret some of those early years of my youngsters that I missed. But I was spending time doing something I loved doing. I loved coaching. I didn't mind coming to work, and I was giving that time, I guess, to other people's children, other parents. So I guess it all balanced out.
Through these doors is where it all began. Little did I know when I entered Varina High School I would meet Judy Courtney. She was the best gym teacher I ever had, and she inspired me to become a PE teacher just like her.
I always wanted to be a teacher, and I had great success being a student at this high school. Many of my teachers were still teaching here, and it was my dream to come back here and teach.
To say that Judy Courtney was an inspiration would be an understatement. This legendary coach brought a group of gymnasts with no team to become a team with state championship status. Influenced by other teachers, her mother, and her husband, the late Jim Courtney, Miss Courtney held the highest expectation for her girls. But she also found a combination of mutual respect and kindness that helped this team become a gymnastics powerhouse.
It was okay if they made a mistake. It didn't matter because as far as my love was concerned for them. It was just in my heart, I guess. I just still do care, love them unconditionally.
Right after my parents, she is the #1 person in my life and played the greatest part in the development of my character.
In practice, you were supposed to do as well as if you were competing. So we learned to practice at our fullest and not do anything halfway.
It was always taught that you give 110%, not just 100%. Because that extra 10% is what makes you better.
I have done some things in my life that I really never thought that I could. So when something difficult comes up, when I face something tough now, I know this is not the toughest thing I've ever done. And I know that if I'm careful and think about how I approach it and use good sense and work hard at it, I'll be able to do it, because Judy showed me how I could.
As in all sports, to be a champion, you have to practice like a champion. While Judy Courtney's practices were strict and thorough, as long as her girls were giving 100%, she was satisfied. Add this philosophy to the support she gave in and out of the gym, and she got a team who came ready to work.
She's one of the most organized people that I've ever met. She's very structured.
She required us to take ballet, so we took ballet.
She individualized each girl's practice time. We had charts that we did that listed the number of tricks we were supposed to do that were in our routines and the certain number of routines we had to do. On the balance beam, we had to do 10 routines without falls, and if you fell off, you might as well start over because it didn't count, which I think at the time we really hated.
It was a trick to give them confidence, because I knew if they knew that they could do 10 routines in a row, compulsory, and 10 routines in a row, optional, that during the gymnastic meet, 1 routine would be next to nothing.
We flew a plane to Michigan. She made sure that we had the best coaching available that was available physically to us.
I was a skinny little kid, and when we would play kickball in elementary school, the ball would almost knock me down. And when I got here and found that I had some athletic ability. Of course, it surprised me because I really didn't know it. And Judy showed me that I had that and showed me that I could do things that I never dreamed.
Judy Courtney showed this to all her girls as they became the dream team of the 1970s. Now in the AA division, they didn't give out state titles, but in 1972 and 73, the Varina gymnastics team were sectional champs. Then in 1974, 75, 76, and 77, they took home 4 consecutive state titles.
After the state meet, Garfield was the AAA winning champions and we were the AA. And one of the assistant principals asked me how I would feel about challenging them because we were in separate competitions at the state level. And I said I thought it'd be a grand idea. So we invited them here and they came and we beat them. And it was sensational.
Even more impressive than this is there were only 4 girls on the roster, less than half the amount that most teams have today.
We could, if someone got injured or if someone wasn't feeling well that day, they still had to perform. There wasn't somebody in the alternates ready to step in. So we always had to be on all the time.
Garber, McLemore, Reynolds, and Manahan knew what it meant to be on. Sometimes with all that pressure to achieve perfection, they just needed a place to vent. Judy's husband, the late Jim Courtney, was just that place.
Well, I do think I kept my cool, but I was very intense.
She didn't need to yell at us most of the time. Some of us didn't function well with yelling, so some of us she never yelled at, but she knew what each person needed and gave them that.
Don't say can't. Whenever we would say that word, she would back us up and she'd say, now what did you say?
Different generations have different attitudes. The gymnasts under Judy Courtney were raised by parents of the 50s, while kids today are being raised by parents of the 70s, the me generation.
Today, there are children who do not have a 2-parent home. And I would say that that would be more difficult for those children today not to have that support that these kids had.
She was involved in all aspects of our life. She checked out our boyfriends. She called at 9 o'clock the night before a meet to see if we were in bed, to make sure we were doing what we were supposed to do. She checked out our grades to make sure we kept our schoolwork up.
She has a lot to do with all the good qualities that I have today. She helped make me who I am.
We had the best adolescence anyone could ask for. She became part of our families and made us part of hers. The gymnastics is still in us, and she's still in us. Always will be.
She was so dedicated to us as a team that when Jim proposed to her, she told him, "You're not just marrying me, you're marrying my girls."
Thank you, Judy, for who you are and who you have made me.
And we've learned to appreciate her in many different roles in our lives, and to look at others around us with maybe more care and more appreciation.
Judy had the highest expectations for each of her girls. She took a personal interest in the challenges they faced daily at school, home, socially, and emotionally, factored it all into her expectations, and then made the time they devoted worthy of their efforts and sacrifices. There's always been an endearment and allure with being a head coach. For a few, the reasons are self-gratifying, but the rare ones who understand that it's really about the kids are the ones who reap an unconditional love from their team and become legendary.
Probably I am the luckiest coach that's ever lived because of them.
I like most about Gilley, he was organized. He was several steps ahead of the other coaches.
But he had a great way of dealing with people in that he wasn't always up in your face screaming. He was put your arm around him, pat you on the rear end, say, you know, here's what we've got to work on. A real teacher, not just somebody who yelled and screamed, but a real teacher of athletics.
Born in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1926, Gilley Sorrell found his love for sports where he attended high school at Hampton. Among his lifelong mentors were Coach Eason, where he learned the meaning of hard work and established his command for the game.
I had a real good coach in college, Coach Harry Ewan. I think about him so many times. I think he did a lot for me. He was one that could make you, right before the ball game, he could make you run through the door and not open it. He was real good, easygoing, and I think he taught me a lot. He taught me to control my temper.
Gilley Sorrell sailed through Ohio's Audubon College in just 3 years. Along the way, he lettered in football and baseball. His first job out of college in 1947, assistant football coach at Highland Springs High School, where he teamed up with a legendary football coach, Dick Burrell.
He knew his personnel well. The big thing is Gilley knew how to use them.
He came in and took care of the line. A big relief for me. I was primarily a backfield coach. So he took care of the line, and I took care of the backfield, and we had great cohesion.
He didn't demand a lot physically, but he demanded that they do the things right mentally. That was his big thing, and both he and I, we just couldn't, errors of commission we could stand, fumble, okay, you have to expect, but errors of omission really set us off, both he and I.
But anybody's going to strike out, I don't care who you are, and somebody is going to make an error. The ball's going to take a bad hop, or you just don't get there. And just like a football player, miss a tackle, gosh, you can't expect to make all of them. If they made all the tackles, they would never make a first down.
And let me give you an example of how we try to psych kids up. We're going to play Manchester. And Manchester this year was, I think it was 1958, was really good. They were undefeated, and we're going to play them, and we were pretty good. We'd only lost a couple games, but we weren't a real good football team. And we're going to play at Parker Field. We're playing them at Parker Field. And I'm trying to get the kids psyched up, and Gilley and I are saying, I don't think they want to play. I told Coach Sorrell, I don't think we should let them get out of this locker room. I don't want to go out in the field and let them embarrass us. It's okay, let's just get out of here and forfeit the game. And the kids were saying, no, Coach, no, Coach. And Gilley said, yeah, we're going to go home. So they're trying to get out the door, and we're leaning against the door, and we're not letting them get out. And they're saying, let us out, Coach, let us out. And we said, you really want to play? Yes, so we let them out. And we went out there and scored a touchdown on our first down, tied them 6-6. And that's how we'd do all these little things to try to get the kids psyched up, because there was only, there was just two of us doing it all. It was a job.
No, the kids did what you told them to do. Coach told them to do something you did. When I was in high school, the same way. There was no questions. I never played on a team where anybody, challenged the coach.
Gilley was a staunch discipline in class. He made a point to let everybody know that he was in charge and he wanted you to do it his way, and then we did it his way.
I never had any discipline problems, let's put it that way.
Turned out to be a great baseball coach. He took the American Legion team down to Carolina, played in the World Series down there.
His true love, baseball. And in 1949, he took over the squad from Coach Burrell and began a 17-year dynasty in the region.
He was well ahead of the game as far as hitting was concerned. I look back and all those guys, the things he taught for hitting was right up to date right now. He knew he was well ahead.
He really stressed the fundamentals of hitting, running, bunting, stealing bases, hit and run, and he instilled those thoughts in our heads. And once he got them there, he let us go.
None of the players questioned Gilley because they knew he knew what he was doing.
But he wasn't one of these hip hip hooray kind of guys, and let's get fired up. When it came to game time, game face came on, and we were ready to play.
Coach Sorrell, he really tried to teach the basics. I think fundamentally how to block, how to get in your stance. These
fond memories of gigantic holes. He was a great technician. He had the patience. He had the ability to look at those guys and say, now here's how you're going to do the offense. Here's how you're going to step with this foot. You're going to use this shoulder. You're going to use this hand.
Everybody blocked in a lot of cases. Jake Adams pulling in front, Vic Kreider at center. I know he did a masterful job with them.
Of course, today, you know, in high school football, you have all 8 or 9 different coaches, and there's an end coach, there's an interior line coach, there's a linebacker coach, and of course, back in the 50s, Gilley was all of this.
We probably had 75, 80 guys on the varsity and had 2 coaches. I mean, there were people everywhere. And
Talent and intellect rocketed Gilley Sorrell through his glory years at Hampton High School and Audubon College in Ohio. The Springers would reap from the football icon who understood the primal instincts of trench warfare.
Gilley, he was very intelligent. He had to, know all the aspects of defense, all the aspects of offense, and then in working with each individual player, such as myself as an end, he had to basically help me run my pattern, show me how to run the patterns and how to catch a football, these types of things. So he was a real well-rounded individual.
And we stomped everybody. Beat Glen Allen 20-something to 0.
In the early days, the Central Region teams measured their performance by the powerhouses of Highland Springs and Hermitage. And in the hearts of some, the battle of supremacy between those two schools still rages on.
But when we won a state championship, there was only 2 of us. At the same time, Hermitage had like 6. Yeah.
Gilley helped form the Springers into region giants. Probably the most memorable game of all high school in the Central Region takes us back to 1959, the matchup between Highland Springs and Hermitage, known as the Hurricane Bowl.
Well, I tell you, that was the kind of an infamous game back in, I guess it was in '59, our senior year, when we played Hermitage. That year we went 9-1, and we were predicted to beat Hermitage.
All I can remember is laying in the gym waiting. We would dress early, and we'd be in the gym, and the phone was ringing. I mean, Coach was calling, and Fritz probably wouldn't, I'm sure he was there and didn't answer the phone. And so all I can remember is we had the feeling that maybe the game shouldn't be played. But once we got there, they came back in the locker room and said to us, "Oh, the field, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's not that bad." And we went for calisthenics, and I remember taking 2 or 3 steps in the water, hit you in the back, and I mean it was cold and wet, and it really wasn't okay.
We actually played, I think it was almost in a hurricane. The weather was so bad, and it was just raining, something terrible. We played at an old Parker Field.
I'm sure it's a game that would not be played today. Probably wouldn't be played any time since that particular year. Incredible thing, I don't know the number, but we had a tremendous number of people spectators at that game.
And as the story goes, I really don't remember the ball floating, but on several occasions they claimed that the referee had to hold the ball down to keep it from floating.
The ball actually would float away when the official takes his foot off of it.
We got a hit 2-0 on a safety, and it went downhill from there for us, and they beat us 13-2 and ruined a really good year.
And we went on to win the next 2 games, and like I say, won the Central District Championship that year, but that one game, it was really a heartbreaker for Gilley and, of course, Al Rinaldi.
We didn't waste any time in practice. And whatever we practiced, you'd see in a game. We enjoyed the games.
First thing I did when they came out, I timed them to first base. Everybody that ever came out, they couldn't run to first base. And they better hit a ton.
When baseball season came around, the Central Region got nervous. Gilley Sorrell and his Springers amassed a record of 166, wins 88 losses and 4 ties in 17 years. Along the way, they picked up 5 region championships.
And Bob Bralley coached my pitchers in '64 and '65. He did a great job. I had 2 pitchers in 1965 team that averaged striking out 14.1 per game. So you think he did a good job?
I'm a firm believer that because of being a great teacher, he became a great coach. And people loved his class. And he took his class as serious as he would being out on the baseball field. I like the respect that the kids have for him because he knew what he was doing. And that's the greatest respect you can have.
He put his heart and soul into it. I was very fortunate to go on to Virginia Tech on a football scholarship, so I basically got my education free, and I would just like to thank Gilley for that.
I've had instilled in me that I need to go in, do the fundamentals, do what's basically right, and I've done this for 28 years now and been successful, and I'd attribute a lot of that to Gilley.
If you had to look back and say, was he missed greatly? Absolutely. But did he teach other people to what they need to do and how to follow in his steps, yes, he did. So the transition was a little bit easier because of having somebody like Gilley.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. We were lucky to come through the time period we came through to have those guys working with us.
A lot of times I think a coach is probably the only one that they really have anyone to talk to when they have problems, which many talk to me. And when they have a problem, I think a coach, they usually trust the coach. They did then, I'm sure they do today.
He just focuses, he works hard in the classroom, and he has a great rapport with the students.
The integrity of the man is just super.
He made you want to win.
He'll make his second string quarterback feel like he's a starter.
He is very demanding. He doesn't, he's not going to let you get away with just being average. Being average is not an excuse for losing.
Ron Axselle cut his teeth in coaching under the guidance of one of the region's most intense football icons, Henrico's John Brown.
Still don't get quite as intense as John. Now, some of my players would tell you differently.
I will say this, Coach Axselle is quite possibly the most uptight human on Fridays between 4 o'clock and 7:30. Maybe we can go all the way to 10 o'clock.
I'm intense in the early part of the week. By the end of the week, I'm relaxed because my job is done.
An original baby boomer, Ron Axselle was born in 1945 in Richmond. And from an early age, Ron's father served as a role model for establishing character and judgment, not only for Ron, but also for his sister and his 3 cousins that lived in the Axselle home, as well as the kids the juvenile courts would send over to Mr. Axselle in hopes that he would be able to instill in them some self-discipline and value. In school, it did not get any easier. His role model, Chester Fritz.
I learned from Coach Fritz discipline. I learned how to work, and I learned the value of everybody pulling together. A lot of times you played for Coach Fritz, you played out of fear because he was rather notorious. You just didn't cross it. But you also respected him. There was a deep-seated respect because he was so successful in 2.
At Hermitage High School under Coach Fritz and assistant coach John Brown, Ron Axselle played football from 1959 to 1963. He moved on over to Hampton, Sydney, where he lettered in football. Upon graduating, Ron Axselle had his mind set in a life in the ministry until he had his meeting with Henrico head football coach John Brown.
Fate, luck, the stars, whatever. I happened to come home my senior year and I saw Coach Brown.
Well, see, I knew Ron when he was at Hermitage. He played for us at Hermitage, and I coached him in the line. And so I remember when he was home on spring break, probably the year he graduated, I was coming out of the barber shop and he was going in, and we stopped and had a chat. And I asked him what he was planning on doing.
My wife says, and I think Neely's right, this is kind of what I was meant to do. I mean, I feel like this is what I was put here for, if you will, and to maybe make an impact in this way.
From August of 1965 through 1979, Ron Axselle taught and coached at Henrico High School, where he founded the wrestling team.
He turned out quite a few wrestlers at Henrico that were very successful on the state levels.
And also made some lasting impressions and friendships along the way.
And make no mistake about it, but he just he wanted to play for him, he wanted to wrestle for him. When wrestling season was over, it just wasn't goodbye.
I think you don't have to play a sport to be a good coach. You just have to work at it.
Ron Axselle became the defensive coordinator under Bill Browning, and 2 years later, Ron was ready for graduation.
I was not ready early. Some people try it when they're 2, 3, 4 years into coaching. I think that's a mistake. I think it takes you 10 years or so to learn and mature. And anyway, at that 12-year mark, Godwin opened, and I was fortunate enough to be selected.
Ron Axselle arrived at Godwin High School, a AA school at the time, and in the first 2 years, the Eagles played a JV schedule. In 1981, their first varsity schedule, the Eagles went 2-7, and Coach Axselle drew the line in the sand.
My freshman year was our first year of varsity play, and I remember we didn't have a senior class. We were very young, very small, but I remember Coach Axselle was, he never lowered his expectations. I think from the beginning he expected us to compete. I remember going 2-7 that year. We played Benedictine, and back then they were very strong, and they beat us. They were very physical, beat us up very, they just beat the crap out of us, really. He said, we're not going to use being young as an excuse for getting beat as bad as we did. And he drew the line in the sand at that point. It was about the midway point of the season, maybe a little bit further along. But I really think that just was a defining moment for me and for my class.
The first years are always the lean years, in more ways than one.
You talk to Mark Alaka, and he was a quarterback and free safety for us. But I probably remember him much more for his free safety play.
He's probably the worst quarterback in Godwin history.
I'm not going to answer that question because I'd hate to insult Mark, but I also hate to insult any of the other quarterbacks that have come through by denying that statement. I will say that Mark is the only defensive back I know that 9 times out of 10, when he gets beat, the quarterback underthrows the ball and he'll get an interception.
In 1982, Coach Axselle began forming that Godwin mystique, and it began with an incredible attention to detail and meticulous scouting.
His players show the same respect for him that they showed for Coach Brown. He is very, very organized, and I know he got that from our days at Henrico together.
We had some players that could play. We didn't have any outstanding talent, but we had a lot of guys that were, average to above average ability, and Coach has a way of getting the most out of what he has.
I think it's a tribute to Coach Axselle and the staff he had. Practice every Saturday morning, watch films every Monday morning of the opposing team. And by Wednesday, you had a breakdown of every play the opposing team had run.
Our scouting reports as a player in high school were more detailed than my scouting reports as a player in college. Earlier that year against Tucker, he did the same thing. It was 4th and 10, and this play affected me. And he came out and said, they're going to be running a dig route with the split end, and he ran a little crossing pattern over the middle, and I was playing free safety. And sure enough, I just sat on it, and I got there. The receiver, the ball, and I all met at the same time, and the ball ended up on the ground.
Godwin is not known for their Michael Robinson or their Aaron Alexander types. Instead, Coach Axselle and his staff developed a system which enveloped the fundamentals and discipline, a system which the students can respect and trust in.
But the good kids are still good kids, and you look through the other. I mean, we have more kids with earrings on now, but they still take them out in August for me. I mean, I tell them they can wear them all year long, they can put them anywhere they want, but in August they come out. And knock on wood, to this point, they do it. They take them out in August, they don't put them back in until November. Now, is that the worst thing in the world if they wear earrings? No, it's not. But it's a point that we're all together. If we're all going to wear earrings, that's one thing. But we're not going to all wear them, I can tell you, because I'm not putting one in, so we're not going to wear them. It's just, I'm old school, but I've been able to continue to stay with it.
You see that in the kids. A lot of the kids he's made coming from boys to men, and not just because they've gotten older, but because he's basically taught them how to be a man without, and how to have self-discipline and respect.
If you loved him, you wanted to please him. If you hated him, you wanted to prove to him that you were better than he thought you were. Either way, he got what he wanted. He got the best out of you.
But good kids are good kids, and they still are the same, deep down inside. Young people want discipline, and for parents or for anybody in the system not to believe that, they're kidding themselves. Young people are begging for discipline. They're only begging that it be fair and it be continuous.
You knew what he was about. There was no pretense about him in any regard.
His enthusiasm, his discipline is contagious. And you see how he does it, and I think everybody aspires to be as complete and as thorough and as committed as he is.
But to be fundamentally strong is how we overcame a lot of the athletic disabilities, not disabilities, but the lack of athletic ability that we had.
When we're most successful is when we have the highest intelligence on the team. They know where to be, even though they're not necessarily going to be the most physical person. When they get there, they're going to make plays because they're in the right places.
I think it's honestly because our young men buy into the system. And the system is that you've got to work all year to be competitive. Now, I'm not saying you work at the expense of other sports. I want our young men playing baseball, I want them wrestling, playing basketball, whatever. But when they're not in another sport, they've got to be here. I mean, I don't like everything that everybody on our staff does, but there's a closeness that I feel for every single one of them, and I think they feel that for me.
The one thing I would say in terms of working with Ronnie is I've always felt like I've worked with him. I've never been made to feel like I work for him, and I think that's really important.
They might not like everything that I do on the field or every decision, but I will never disagree with them on the field. If they make a statement to the players that I think is wrong, then we'll go back inside and we'll get it straightened out. But we never disagree out here. That's improper. I'll never berate a coach on the field, fuss at a fellow assistant. I might say, well, let's talk about that later on. But that's as far as I'm going to ever get to disagreeing on the field. And I think the boys sense that togetherness, and we've just had a great group of young men.
Beginning his 20th season as a varsity head coach, Ron Axselle has amassed a record of 140 wins, 79 losses, and 3 ties. Along the way, the Eagles have won 4 district championships, 3 region titles, and 7 appearances.
It's not whether he won championships or won games, it's what kids and what values go with those kids.
Morally, he's a very fine person, and you couldn't want a better coach for your son to play for.
I mean, it wasn't just football. You know, he talked about my parents, we talked about everything.
Lost to Robinson, unfortunately. It was the end of the game, and we're looking around, console each other or whatever. No one could find Coach Axselle. And where we were playing, the tennis courts were around, so he was sitting by himself on the other side of the tennis courts, just kind of taking it all in as far as the game and such. And I was talking to his wife and asking why he was over there, and she said that he's upset because he's not going to be able to coach you guys anymore. And he was talking about the senior players on the team at that time. So a handful of us walked over there and got him up, tried to get him back over, and that's a moment that I'll remember for a long time.
He turned a young program around in 1 year and set in stone the prototype of Godwin Eagle football, a reputation that will far exceed beyond his coaching years.
Who did I miss? Who could I have reached that I didn't? I think I've reached most of them that have come through my door, that have walked in here, but there's probably some that maybe I didn't quite, and you never know who you're reaching. Some of the best athletes are not the ones that are going to remember you 20 years from now. Some of the ones that come to see me and call me on the phone are the ones who are just average athletes at best, but they have the fondest memories of football, of me, of the classroom, whatever it was. And so I guess if anything, I might ask, did I miss somebody? And I hope not.
What you take with you from playing 4 years with Coach Axselle is, probably six principles. One, kind of wrapped up in 3: God, family, and country. He's always talking about that, but honor, discipline, and commitment. I think when kids, when I look back on what I learned on this football field, that's what sticks with me. Not whether we won or lost or.
Once you're a player for Godwin High School, you're a player forever.
He would have been a great preacher too, I'm sure, because he would have the same attributes. I mean, he would probably, I don't know whether he would work, I guess he would work 7 days a week if he was a minister.
In 1968, a young Ron Axselle was set to begin a life in the ministry, hoping to help and touch the lives of those in need. Instead, he ministered an entire generation of students and athletes and gave them the gift of self-respect and discipline that will endure the generations, a gift that turned ordinary people into legends.
So every group has its own uniqueness. The group in '84 was brash. They believed in themselves. They were cocky. They drove me crazy. It drove us crazy as a staff. They would walk out here on the field. They would have lousy practices all week. You'd think to yourself, we're never going to get through this game, and then they'd go out on Friday night and get it done.
In the state semifinals their senior year, but we were playing Hanley High School up in Winchester. They just scored to tie the game, I believe. I can't remember, but they went for 2, and we ended up losing 11-9. So this is a 2-point conversion to ultimately win the game. And coach comes out there and he told us exactly. We had worked on it in practice. He told us exactly what play was coming. We did not defend it, but that was our mistake, not his.
The group in '88 was a group of just solid citizens, never any trouble in the classroom, disciplined, hardworking. Same thing in '89 when we went 10-0 and got beat in the first round of the playoff.
All the guys, the seniors, we played together since we were freshmen. Athletically, we had a great quarterback. Brian Reed was our quarterback. We had some great receivers, Jerry Inman. I was pretty good myself, I thought. And we had great running back with Ryan Heathcock and Mark Allen. I mean, we just had, with key positions, we had guys who knew what their job was, knew what they were doing, and they were good at what they did.
But just good, hardworking, good people, just quality individuals.
The Robinson game, it was tough going into a competitor stadium. It was quite loud, big time crowd for Robinson. We had a few breakdowns just on special teams that hurt us. I mean, one drop pass here and there. We played good. We should have won, could have won, but it was 2 or 3 mental errors or something. Somebody missed something, but we were in the game the whole time.
Then the same thing with this group this past year. We've been lucky. We've had very few years where we had what I would call less than top quality individuals.
Remember, we were in the locker room and you know, just it was very eerie trying to talk to my team at that point. Just from a pure coaching standpoint, it's you know you've got to be at your best, because if you're not, he's going to beat you. And he's the one guy that on Friday night, you know, he's the one coach that I really think can win a football game regardless of who he has playing for him. And so you know that, I mean, you could have 10 times more talent than he does, but if you're not your best, you're not going to win on talent alone, because he's going to find a way to beat you and exploit you. And he certainly did that to us last year. I mean, I was very confident in our team, and to be honest with you, I was very confident. I was a basket case, but it was one of those weeks that I felt like we had better players, and we would come out and we would play better and we would win, and he absolutely tore us apart. The score was only 17-14, but again, it was one of those deals where physically they just whipped us, and from a standpoint on the sideline, I felt I did a very poor job, and he did a very good job of coaching that night and really that week. I mean, he did a better job Monday through Thursday than I did that week, and certainly did a better job on Friday night.
His philosophy of coaching was just like Vince Lombardi. He treated everybody alike, like dogs.
Come game night, you just didn't mess with John. I mean, he was extremely competitive.
And as I always said, when I hired a coach, I wanted him smarter than I was. There's no use to have one if he's not smarter than I was, because I wouldn't need him if I did that. So I looked for people who were real smart, and John Brown was one of them.
He was all business on the field.
Coach Brown was like a father figure.
Coach Brown was probably the most respected person in school.
Sports heroes often become legends because of what they did on the field. Less attention is often paid to those who mentor their proteges, who in turn become legendary coaches.
He had a really good staff around him, and I'm very fortunate to this day that I was fortunate not only to play for Coach Brown, but Don Colley, Steve Vitek, and Wayne Lowry. That was a terrific group of coaches for us to be around, great role models.
It's not John Brown's records that will grab your attention. Instead, his brand of football has spawned a group of successful coaches whose records and accomplishments on paper surpass those of their mentor. John Brown can very well be tagged the Bill Walsh of the Central Region.
And I've been very fortunate that a lot of the kids that played for me are very successful today. And a lot of guys that coach with me have gone on and been very, very successful. So I kind of think that maybe we were doing something right over there all those years.
Born in 1930, John Brown's football career actually began at Culpeper High School. From there, he went to the University of Richmond, where his dream to become a football coach would start to become a reality.
I gave a kid an ultimatum, and it really wasn't a fair ultimatum, but it was typical 21-year-old youthful enthusiasm, 22 years, whatever it was. And I remember John saying to me, "Ron, always leave yourself a back door."
Brown's job didn't stop at the end of practice. He also took an active interest in each of his athletes' lives off the field, an attribute not only important to his students, but to other role models of his caliber.
He was probably more respected that time than the principal. He meant more to me as a football player. We would have done anything for Coach Brown.
Practice at college was identical to the same way it was run at Henrico High School. And so Coach Brown was up to date on how to run a football team, how to teach it to block, tackle, and run, all the top things that go on with football.
Everything I learned from football was from Coach Brown.
John Brown was mentored by the great Chester Fritz. This meant two things. Playing for him or playing against him would not be easy.
I was an assistant line coach, coached the offensive and defensive line. I went to Hermitage in 1952 to work under Coach Chester Fritz. I worked with him for 10 years. I look back at that phase of my life. That was my basic training as far as coaching was concerned. He was an excellent coach, a great teacher, not only for the kids that played for him, but the guys that coached for him. And
something nobody sort of mentioned, you know, John was a great basketball coach. He coached 7 years for us at Hermitage. He went to 2 state playoffs. He won a couple of district champions, and you never hear about that.
I remember as a sophomore, we had a group of us that we weren't starters, and we were called the Bold Gold Defense. And Coach Brown would get the guys over there that weren't starting, and you would give everything you had in practice against the starters, which would make them better on Friday night. And he made everybody feel like they were part of the team.
John Brown was a leader to his men and a father to his boys.
All right, guys, the hay's in the barn. And that was his favorite saying. It meant, hey, we've done enough practicing, now it's all up to you guys.
We weren't very flashy on offense, but we got the job done, but we were always pretty good on defense.
There were more than one time when he would get flustered on Friday night and he'd get his words twisted and turned around and everybody would just get excited and go on out there and play.
He would get upset, but he would never go to the point where he was just ranting and raving. If the team came off the field and they hadn't done very well, you knew it by looking at it.
I don't want you to like me. I want to win football games. And that's the way he felt. He wasn't in it for you liking him. He was trying to put that football team on the field and prepare it for the next game.
Coach Brown also brought to Henrico the color scheme of the Green Bay Packers that are still used today, much like his advice.
I would tell people getting into coaching today that nothing is easy. And coaching is not easy. You have to work at it, and you have to work hard. And the people that are successful are the people that work hard and put in the time and get the message out to the kids that this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to have discipline. You're going to be on time. And you're going to have respect not only for the people that you're playing with and the coaches, but the teachers and kids that in school, and also the people that you play against.
I'd have to say the real strength behind Coach Brown is Betty, his wife.
Of course, one of Brown's biggest fans was his wife, Betty. She took care of the players, the other coaches, and the other wives to create a family atmosphere that would last throughout the season.
We'd run the ball, of course, everybody said, throw the ball, Brown, and she never lost her cool up there. I think she knew that Coach Brown was in it for the kids and he was going to do anything he could, and that was his life. And she would take a back seat sometimes during football season to him because he would spend all his time on football. But I think she knew that. But I think she was, had to be a great lady to put up with that.
You really have to have a very supportive wife as a coach, whether it be football, baseball, any type of coach. But I would say Betty is one of the greatest.
Coach Brown's dedication to his players, coaching staff, and the game of football has left a lasting impression that will last throughout the years. His modesty will never tell you the people he's influenced.
Other than my parents, I would say Coach Brown has had the biggest influence on me in my life. From the self-discipline that he taught me, the hard work from playing for him, and then when I worked with him, seeing how he worked and what he expected, and the role model that he was.
The way he conducted his life and the expectations that he stood so strongly by have been used by many coaches to mold the lives of young men and women even decades after he has left his coaching post.
The reason I came to Highland Springs to coach was, the one reason was, of course, Dick Burrell.
He was a disciplinarian, that he was a real taskmaster.
He was very popular, and they were upset when he left.
You know, a lot of people think that I was the one that started that Springer tradition, Springer feed, but it was Dick Burrell.
He galvanized the support from a lot of the businesses and parents who were all booster members.
We got the community behind us. You know, people love a winner, and we got the community behind us. We had a band that was just getting started, and cheerleaders just getting started, and we started to having Thursday night pep rallies, you know, big fire going on, the band playing, the cheerleaders marching and whatnot, and the community got behind us.
He started the Springer spirit, so to speak, a great coach, winning tradition, and really started the ball rolling in Springer football.
And promptly went 25 games without a loss. They ran the split T and the quarterback option, as Highland Springs was hard to beat in the 40s.
Well, he had a great reputation. In 1948, they were undefeated. They only lost 2 or 3 games for a period of about 4 years.
I tried to model myself after the coach at Notre Dame, Newt Rockney.
The Springers went 9-0-1 in 46. They went 9-0 in 47 and got to their 7th game in 1948 before they ran into Fredericksburg High School.
Awful night. I had this old hat that I'd worn for 2 or 3 years, and at the opening kickoff football game, I'd turn that brim up like this. That was a good luck hat. It had gone 3 or 4 seasons without a loss. And stupid me, about halfway home, feeling sorry for myself, I took that hat and threw it out the window. Dumbest thing I ever did. That was a good luck hat. And things got worse.
By Dick's 2nd year, he finally got himself an aide in the name of Gilley Sorrell, and things really started to roll at Highland Springs.
Oh, it was a great combination. I loved that guy. He was fresh out of college, very energetic and smart as he could be, and very cooperative. He took care of his business of the line, I took care of the backs.
I can remember the first day of practice on August the 25th, 1947, when he took it out and the squad came out, and he said, and he introduced me to the squad and said, "This is Gilley Sorrell. He's going to be your line coach." He said, "He knows what he's talking about. I want you to show him the same respect that you've shown me."
We stomped everybody. Beat Glen Allen 20-something to nothing.
If I had to go to war, I'd like to go with him.
I still love that guy and see him all the time now.
At the age of 6, Dick Burrell's family moved from New York to Farmville, where he stayed there all the way through his college days at Hampton, Sydney. Upon graduating, he went over and started teaching at Clarksville High School in Emporia before going to the Coast Guard for World War II.
I'm reminded of a lesson that I was taught when I was first coaching and teaching at Clarksville. I was teaching an algebra class, and evidently I got a little upset about the kids not catching on to algebra. And this little kid on the front row said, "Coach Burrell," said, we're having a lot of trouble with this algebra. And says, "You think we're dumb because we can't get your algebra." He said, "But I can take a car motor apart and I can put it back together again and it'll run. I bet you can't." Taught me a lesson. That little boy taught me a real good lesson. Appreciate other people and their talent.
After finishing his tour of duty, Dick Burrell was brought back into the high school world through his former Clarksville principal, J. Irving Brooks, who already was installed at Highland Springs and was looking for someone to guide his football team.
One of the secrets was Masonic Home of Virginia. At that time, the Masonic Home was just for orphans of deceased Masons. There was not a mature group there. They were all kids. And they were a tough bunch of kids. And I had 6 or 7 boys from the Sonic home that played for me. Every one of them was just tough and dedicated. Bingo. It was self-made, beautiful. We had Judy Needham, who was a terrific running back, great athlete. We had a boy that came back from service, Dick Goodman, at quarterback with mature. And we had a beautiful end, 6'3", and he could run 110 flat. So we had a great running back to begin with, and we had a great passing combination, a seasoned quarterback and a great end. And we won the first ball game. We'd never won them before. Bingo, we were on our way.
In Burrell's days, the Springers played many smaller teams such as Culpeper, Louisa, Fredericksburg, and Glen Allen, later Hermitage. Toward the end of Burrell's stint, they were making the transition to Group 1, now AAA, and the big schools and losing a good bit. Still, Burrell had only one losing year, 3-5-1.
In 1952, 53, 54, they were too big for AA and not big enough for AAA. Hermitage had already gone AAA in 51 when they built a new school. Highland Springs' new school didn't come about until the year after. And so Highland Springs got caught in the changeover from 2 to 3, and that's when he started losing some ball games. And I remember when I came, we were scheduled to play Warwick, EC Glass, Fairfax. We went all over the state to get beat.
In 1946, the first Tobacco Bowl game was played, and very few people know that it was played between 2 high schools, Highland Springs and Glen Allen.
It was Pearl Harbor Day. They were playing in the first Tobacco Bowl versus his arch rival, George Gasser and Glen Allen. And it was on December 7th.
Man, it was fabulous. It was terrific. Early in the first quarter, Judy Needham caught a punt, ran down the far sidelines, 70 yards for a touchdown. The umpire called him back and called him out of bounds after he ran about 10 yards. I could have killed that striped shirt. Oh, here's a Tobacco Bowl, a great big stadium, and the people filled. It was just a wonderful feeling.
The Springers later beat Glen Allen 20-0, only one of a few teams to do so in the 40s.
We have a ball in our trophy case. Glen Allen at that time used to be the big rival. And George Gasser was the coach at Glen Allen, which is now Hermitage. And we have a ball in our trophy case to this day, Highland Springs 6, GA nothing. And of course, the kids don't know what GA is, and I tell them, yes, Dick Burrell and Highland Springs beat Georgia back in 1948.
We played him at City Stadium one time, and the thing I remember most, that it was a close ball game, and he broke clean, had a boy in the open field, we wasn't around him, and he dropped the football. We recovered it and went in and scored to beat him. I don't think he ever beat us, but we was always close games.
Notorious for playing games in the worst of conditions, anything to get the edge on the other team. This time, in a snow flurry, Burrell had second thoughts.
Oh, we were a passing ball club. Chester had a boy who later went to VPI who was a great runner. It was their home game. I didn't want to play. Chester knew that the bad field conditions would help him and hurt us. So he says, we're going to play. So we played. We got beat by 1 touchdown.
After his Woodbury stint, Burrell went on to Hampton City College, his alma mater, as an athletic director in 1960. A couple of years after assuming the AD duties, he also became the football and basketball assistant. He became the sports information director from 1970 to 1979, after which he retired.
He would always look out for us because he had been a Springer coach and he knew we were Springers, and he would take us aside, make sure everything was okay, the transition was all right from high school to college. And down through the years, I've seen him from time to time, and he's always been wonderful, and respect him a great deal.
In 1946, he came along to Highland Springs at a time when the sports program was in despair. He turned a football team that was used to losing into a dynasty that would last decades beyond his coaching days.
We tried to develop a feeling among the boys that if they gave the best that they could possibly give, if they put all out effort, they were successful, whether they won or lost the ball game.
He's a man of fire and emotion, an encouraging father figure to all. If the measure of a successful coach is judged by how well his team performs on the field, the father of Highland Springs football reached icon status then overnight. He came at a time when the country was healing from the Second World War. Highland Springs, a small community at the time, needed someone to help them believe that the worst was behind them, not only abroad, but on the gridiron.
I don't want to be too gushy and too flamboyant about it, but deep down inside, I try to be like my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister back here in the 1920s. He almost drowned me when he baptized me. And I hope he's a little proud of me now when he's up there with the good Lord.
Hi, I'm Jerry Stone for Rules of the Game. In today's segment, we're going to discuss the illegal dribble. The point of reference in this particular play will be the relationship between the ball to Dylan's hand. When he commits a violation, you will notice that the basketball actually freezes as he changes direction. This is a violation. When this play is correctly executed, you will notice that the dribble is one continuous motion. The ball will never actually stop as he changes direction. I'd like to thank Matt and Dylan for helping out with this demonstration of an illegal dribble. A good rule of thumb for anyone handling the basketball is once the ball comes to rest in your hand as a dribbler, the dribble is ended, and so has this segment. This is Jerry Stone for Rules of the Game.
That's it. What?
Hi, this is Jerry Stone for Rules of the Game. In this segment, we're going to discuss lane violations. A commonly misunderstood rule in high school basketball is what is a lane violation? You will note that when done correctly, the players along the lane do not enter the lane until the ball has made contact with the rim or the backboard. A good example of what is a violation, if you will watch Matt as he moves in front of Dylan in the lane prior to the release of the ball by the free throw shooter. This is a violation on the defense. I'd like to thank the guys for helping us out with this segment. Remember, anticipate the play, but don't go in the lane until the ball hits the rim or the board.
Thanks, Mr. Stone. Just don't call that on us in Hermitage Friday.
This is Jerry Stone for Rules of the Game.
Ready?
Yep. Hi, this is Jerry Stone. Today we're going to paint a picture of a player who is on the floor having recovered a loose ball, and what that player can do legally in order to keep the ball and not violate the rules in this segment of Rules of the Game. In the first example, the player recovers the fumble and without rolling over or standing up, passes to a teammate. This is legal. On this loose ball, the player recovers the ball but sits up to pass to a teammate. This is a violation. You will notice the player recovers the fumble but slides, rolls over, sits up. This is a violation. On the player where a player recovers a loose ball on the floor, sliding on the floor is not the violation. But if that player recovers the ball, sets up, turns over, or stands without dribbling, a violation has been committed.
Where were you at Hermitage?
That's a technical. This is Jerry Stone for Rules of the Game.
Intense. He was very forceful.
It's the type of person that I like to emulate myself after.
Drew has tremendous enthusiasm. He has a very magnetic personality.
You always know where you stand with Drew.
You could send your son to Drew, and you know he'd be treated with dignity, you know he'd be treated with respect.
He never made us feel bad about ourselves for losing.
Growing up in Hunterton, New Jersey wasn't easy for the oldest boy of the 6 children in the Bright household. Born in 1948, the son of an undertaker, Drew Bright suffered the loss of his mother at the young age of 11. Drew found comfort in his loss through sports, playing football at North Huntington High School and excelling in wrestling, where in his senior year, he was a district and the region champion in his weight class. But Drew's father was not a big fan of athletics, caring more about punctuality, work ethic, and grades, all fused together with tough love. That fusion helped Drew land a spot on the William and Mary wrestling team in 1967. He rose to the rank of team captain in his senior year.
I got very lucky in getting the Freeman job. I had no earthly idea what I was doing, getting into, or whatever. I had really no knowledge of Freeman particularly, and Freeman wrestling specifically.
If they're not good teachers, they're not going to be a good coach. So I think, again, the same thoroughness, the same enthusiasm that he shows on the mat, I think, are the same type of things that he shows in the classroom.
At the time, you wonder, this might be something I'll do for a year or two or whatever.
Well, I thought he was going to go to law school. I never dreamed that he would actually stay here as a teacher.
One of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. Foregoing a law career, Drew Bright opted out for a more rewarding profession, teaching and influencing young people. Drew's standards were instilled in his high school and college wrestling mats, which resulted in his coaching principles and stylings, such as, don't teach over your head, keep it simple, stupid, and allow kids to learn from other styles.
I don't think it's important for a leader to know all the answers. I think it's important for a leader of anything to be able to answer the questions he can answer, and then if he can't answer the question, know where to look for the answer.
He's got great kids that are dedicated and work hard, and that just doesn't come easy. You have to create that. You have to be a role model for that.
And sometimes an athlete doesn't know that he can do better. Many athletes don't know how good they are. And Drew is encouraging them all the time to take their best shot.
Drew Bright has favored the challenges of coaching the less talented into late bloomers, the reward of helping those achieve beyond their own standards, an appreciation Drew Bright can relate to.
I don't think the stars are the ones that make or break your team. I think that over the years, what have made the Freeman teams good when they've been good have been the down-the-line kids. How high can I raise them?
He didn't beat stuff into you. He made you look in yourself and pull things out.
And I know Drew takes a lot of pride in that. And that's noble, that's very admirable. And that's a part of coaching, because you're doing a lot of guiding young men and sometimes young women into kind of a larger mission, a larger sense of purpose in life. And I think Drew's done a terrific job with that.
If you're supposed to do a move with your palm down or with your palm up, or if you're supposed to do a move on your knee or off your knees, Drew is very good at showing a kid.
And then just the way he handles himself on the mat. I mean, no matter how poorly we're wrestling or however grim the situation is, he keeps his cool.
Drew's teams were always the teams that you wanted to beat.
As the coaching and teaching front were receiving recognition, life at home had its doubts. The hours and evenings away from the family can take its toll on a marriage. What really counts are the feelings for each other when you are together. Whether you're apart for an hour, days, or even weeks, it's what's in your heart that matters, and those are the ties that bind.
At that point in time, I started to give in because he was so good at what he was doing, and not just on the mat, but the classroom. He's just phenomenal. I would stand outside his door and here you go, listen to lectures. And I think, my God, how can you just take that passion, you can't take that passion from another individual. I felt like the kids needed him. They were I can't write through this whole thing, but they were our children. I sponsored so many of the kids, the cheerleaders for the team, and for 7 years until our son was born. they were our kids.
They were very supportive in that they gave me the time that we needed to do with this thing. And I think any coach that's been in it for any amount of time will have to tell you, if their family isn't committed to it, it's going to be very difficult. And most coaches have to give it up because their family just needs more time.
I was sort of mother, girlfriend, maid, all rolled into one. I mean, it was, and I'm sure he would be the first to admit that he did a lot of things wrong, you know, if you want to call them wrong.
It's hurtful when you feel as though you're not doing all you can for your family. But my opinion was it was my job. I had to do it. We knew what had to be done, and that's my father coming out in me. They just get the job done.
I couldn't ever, everything I tried to knock him for were the things that I held dear. The values, his value system, his sense of commitment, the pride, the passion, the love of these kids. And what did I want to change? What the good things about him, you know, were the things that I guess I would have had to change, which made no sense. So finally I realized I was going to have to change, or make a change. I was going to have to change myself.
With peace comes understanding, and the Central Region understood the road to the state tournament stopped at Freeman.
A quad late in the year, Hopewell, a very, very good team. Lee Davis, a pretty good team also, Clover Hill. So we had one from each of the 4 districts, and we wanted to win every match. And about halfway through, we were all looking at each other because we're all getting hammered by Douglas Freeman, and we all yell over to Drew. We say, "Hey, Drew, thanks for inviting us." You know.
So I believe it was 1983, and I had 3 very tough lightweights: a 103-pounder, a 112-pounder, Herbie Monroe, Ronnie Billups, and Tommy Billups. And it was at Hermitage, and they came out of the starting gate, and we had 3 pins right in a row. So we were up 18-0, and that was unheard of. And I think it's about that point that you saw this look, a little bit of terror on Drew's face, like what the heck just came out of the gate. And we never looked back, and that was probably the most memorable night of my dual meet history.
Because it meant beating the best, not just the best team, but over the years and longevity, the best coach.
Coaching requires the full use of all your mental faculties. Coaching your son or daughter can be taxing on the whole mental process. Through it all, 2 constants stand clear: a parent's fear of overcoaching and a son's desire to please his dad.
Well, growing up in the Bright household included this gym as well. I've been here for 18 years. We've been here a lot. And we've always been involved with the wrestling program, always gone to matches since as far back as I can remember.
We would come to all the matches, and Taylor would crawl around on the mat.
It was obviously both very difficult and very rewarding. Because you try not to be too much father. You try to coach him the way you coached and dealt with all of the other kids. It was very hard emotionally.
I was really excited about wrestling for my dad. That was one of the main reasons I came to Freeman, because like I said, I'd grown up in here and I wanted to wrestle in this gym for my dad.
And yet my husband's perspective was always, I need to get out of coaching by the time Taylor gets there. He really didn't want to coach his own son here at school, which I thought was very interesting.
Because it's hard enough in this sport because everything's concentrated, and then you had the father situation. So it was really tough watching him wrestle. It wasn't tough that I didn't enjoy it. I worried about how he would handle it.
I guess I didn't realize how much it meant to him to do that until this past season, his senior year, when as a result of some knee surgery and mono, he really he had to step off the team. And I've never seen anybody that reacted that way. I had no idea how deep-seated this whole relationship was.
But with all of the things I gave up with him and couldn't do with him, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Maybe something in that respect, wanting to do the extra mile, not just for myself or the team, but just because it's my dad on the sideline. And I'd seen people win championships for him, and I wanted to win more for him.
It is easy to understand the emotional outpouring for a person who says what is right, does what is right, and then lives the life of what is right.
Whether it's the coaches poll, the team poll, it's the kids always came first, okay? If it meant some kid from another school got ranked higher than some of his kids, it was, what was the right thing to do? And I look at that as a measure of certain respect and dedication, but honesty.
There comes a time when you're alone with your thoughts, faced with recounting your life's work and what it all means. Drew Bright had over 200 people sharing those thoughts with him at his 25-year coaching anniversary.
Probably the thing that I still remember the most in 28 years is not a particular victory or championship, but at the end of my 25th year as head coach, a number of people got together and decided they wanted to have basically an alumni reunion. And it was a top secret thing, and very few things get by me.
A coach who sacrifices time from his family. A coach who everyone expects to the highest degree. A coach who exemplifies the meaning class.
That thing was so shocking to me when I walked in the banquet hall, because I thought I was going to a business seminar, is the way it was set up for me. So I was set to go and listen to financial planning and things like that. And I mean, if I had a heart condition, I would have dropped right there. I mean, it just floored me.
He has touched so many wrestlers' lives over the course of his wrestling career. You're talking about 300 plus wrestlers that he has coached, and everyone has left this room or left him a much better person.
I mean, if you go to a dual meet here at Douglas Freeman, you're going to see 6 or 7 other former Douglas Freeman wrestlers behind the scenes doing their little niche with the coaching and patting on the back, okay? That's a tremendous amount of loyalty.
He grew up in a home where he competed for the approval of his father. He grew up with athletic competition, desiring to be more than just average. At the crossroads of life, he chose the road less traveled, the road of an educator, where appreciation and wealth rarely commute. He has given the better part of his life to kids other than his own, but saved the best for his son and his wife. Drew Bright is just another one of life's simple lessons. In this world, the most you'll get out of life is a maybe. The rest you have to earn for yourself. Those who realize that this world is about how much you give of yourself to others find love and purpose. Those who live that life become legends.
Athletics and football in particular, because it's a team sport, helps them a lot, because in our classrooms we encourage group work. So whereas individual sports are good for building individual achievement, team sports help them understand what it's like to be in a group, to work together to accomplish a common goal. They help a lot.
Football has really just made a great person out of him.
The thing that we forget is that when they come to the school, they're 14 and 15 years old. So even the most well-behaved student has a few glitches.
When he first started out here, I think he had a little problem focusing in on what was important, academics. The athletic end, he always knew he wanted to do that.
His freshman year, we saw more of nothing.
Because my 9th and 10th grade year, basically almost, I thought teachers was against me. I didn't get along with them.
No homework. So we saw football, but we didn't see homework. We didn't see anything. So we had to really tell Nolan, if you really want to play football, you got to get the books.
I think he sort of felt that he could get by with a minimum, and if that was going to work, then that was going to be the status quo for him.
They'd tell me to do something, I wouldn't do it, like homework, study for tests. They used to tell me if I studied for tests, then I'll pass and stuff. So I didn't really listen to them until they started turning coach.
I was speaking with Coach Burton, and I had contacted his mother, and I said, look, this kid can do it. We just need to make sure that he stays on point.
He's not unlike a lot of other kids in that respect, that they don't really understand the long-term ramifications of not doing anything.
I felt like I had to get stronger and harder on him because I felt like I wasn't as hard on him in 9th grade that I was in middle school.
I really didn't like school. I really didn't like studying. I just wanted to play football. I didn't really care.
Some students just do a complete turnaround with, first of all, maturity and age, so that they're different students in the 10th grade year, more so than 9th grade year. There's a total, complete change for most of them. And in terms of Nolan, I would say that it was dealing with maturity of age. And then there were a lot of teachers that saw this kid has potential.
My personality and Coach Burton's personality really didn't get along at first. Because I remember when he came, his first day he got here, and I used to tell him, he came in, he had a meeting with everybody. Everybody that wanted to play football the next year, he had a meeting and said, you would be in the weight room every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I looked at him like he was crazy.
You know, all I saw was a young man who had a lot of potential, but I didn't think that he understood that.
It's very easy for people to fall through the cracks because I wasn't the only person that Coach Burton tried to help, but I was like the only one to succeed and listen to him. Many people just rode the fence, as he would say, and instead of falling on the football side and doing the right thing, they fell on the wrong side.
One of my responsibilities in the position that I'm in is to make kids understand what they have. And Nolan didn't know what he had.
In talking to Coach Burton, I told him my concerns, and the two of us started working together, sort of dovetailed together, to encourage Nolan to realize that mediocrity was not going to be accepted.
Nolan was able to say, look, I'm not a good student, but I want to be.
Nobody's going to care about your talent unless you can get it done in the classroom and in school.
So it took kind of a blow to his ego to be able to make that admission and do the work that was required to overcome that obstacle. Because school is more than just being intelligent. You got to learn how to be a good student.
He needed to do his best for himself as well as his family, and that he could do an excellent job.
Coach Burton also was very concerned about him because he was such a great kid. And with the support from the teachers and the coaches, it really helped us to even push even harder to make him do.
He's a good kid, and we want to make sure that we give him the adequate amount of choices to get himself together and, help him succeed.
But some of the real reasons that people didn't really listen to Coach Burton about sitting on the fence and stuff is because they didn't believe in what he believed in. They didn't believe in going and work hard and then doing this. They wanted to do their own thing. They wanted to go home with their friends, play Nintendo games, shoot basketball with their friends, instead of coming out here working hard as a family, as a football team.
The brother's gonna work it out. The brother's gonna work it out. The brother's gonna work it out.
I've seen him just mature, especially now. He's a leader. Those qualities have been developed through athletics and through the classroom so that he's able to take charge of things and lead other people to positive results.
Let's first of all give Scott Burton, our head football coach, all the credit that is deserving of what he and Nolan have developed in their relationship. Scott Burton has done a tremendous job at showing Nolan directives, ways to follow, the paths to success in basketball. The carry-over factor was there.
First of all, he helps with classroom management. I saw the kids respect him, not in some awesome way, but when he said something, it kind of brought a change.
I know that he was given the opportunity to go out to the feeder schools and speak to the students there. One story that I want to point to, I was on my way from practice, and we hadn't had the best of practices that day. I called Nolan on the cell phone. I said, Nolan, you're going to start for me from now on. The next day we came to practice, Nolan started, and it wasn't exactly the chemistry I was looking for. I took Nolan out of the starting lineup, and he became a reserve once again. Nolan's efforts, demeanor, attitude did not change one iota.
And when we started 11th grade English and he didn't do as well as he thought, there was, I want to say an immediate turnaround, and it was on his part where he said, okay, I can't make these grades, and there are people that have things riding on me, there are people that expect things of me.
I mean, I'm a very laid-back person, so when people looked at me, they thought that I was lazy, that I didn't really care. So in the classrooms, when I started making better grades, and then out here on the football field, when I started doing things that people didn't think I could do, it shocked everybody, even myself sometimes.
Nolan is a one-on-one type of guy. When you speak to him, he holds a conversation like an adult. You don't have to speak to him in a crowd because he won't be visible in a crowd. He's sort of like the silent one, but he's a man one-on-one.
He's a cooperative person, he's a team person, and he's a leader. And those are assets that can be used in any instance, whether it's on the football field, in the classroom, at Motorola. He's a great guy to have on your side and working with you.
Starting from the freshman year and working to now, where we started at 1.6, and now we're going into the senior year with a 2.7. We're looking to at least have a 3-something his final year. So we feel great about that because the job has not been easy. It has been a hard job to make sure that he gets there.
No! Don't go up, don't go up! That's gonna get you killed!
Coach Burton has done a great job with laying the foundation for these kids. You know, we set expectations and we set standards for them. And, you know, starting a couple of years ago with some of the guys that have gone on, they've laid that foundation for the kids. So now it's just second nature to them.
But they really do thrive on discipline and structure, so they really do want that and they crave it.
That's why we're having success now, is because we had to weed out
some of the people that didn't buy into that. I mean, some good players along the way have been weeded out, but the ones that have bought in and the ones that we have today are the ones that are going to benefit from the success.
All week we've been practicing hard, O-line, ATM. That's where we go back.
We have groups on our team that have their own unique name, and we try to make them feel special because of their contribution that they give to our team.
The ATM, they don't even tell me what ATM means, so I couldn't even tell you.
So kids love being a part of something successful, and they love feeling special.
Like when we come out, we do offense and defense. Offense don't want defense to do nothing wrong, and then we be on D. D don't want offense to score nothing. 1, 2, 3,
When I'm showing them different routes to run, I don't just show them how to do it. I'll actually do it for them. I feel like I'm relatively still in shape to do that, so it's better to see it than to just try to explain it and critique them on the way. So I'll actually run out and do it with them, and I'll joke around with them and say that I'm running the pattern better than you are, and you need to get better than me, and we make it all a big competition. And
you let kids slack if they don't understand that there's a link between what the drills that they do in practice and what happens on Friday night. They will slack. They will not see it through because they don't see the link. So we will stop game films and say, okay, remember that drill we did on Tuesday? Bang, there it is right there. And kids suddenly, the light bulb goes off a little bit and they say, oh, okay, now I understand why we do that drill.
I remember which game last year, but when the coach told me to do it his way and stop doing things my way, and when I did it, I made a big hit and everybody got excited. And I said I was going to do everything the coach said from then on.
Because we come out with too much attention. We fly around the ball. We hype before pregame. We hype when we eating dinner.
You have your players from year to year that are spot starters, that have the talent, that they don't put it together. How do you get those players turned around?
Kevin Allen, case in point. Kevin was a kid last year as a sophomore who was way too talented to be on the JV and really should have been a starter for us all year long. And Kevin was a guy who did things right some of the time. And when he did it right, he did it really well. But he was kind of absent-minded at times. And, you'd look and he'd be kind of off in the stars somewhere. And, you say, Kevin, let's go. So what we do, rather than jump on Kevin, rather than say to Kevin, hey, what are you doing? You jerk, this and that. What we do is I put my arm around Kevin and I say, look, you don't understand what you have to offer. And as soon as the light bulb goes off with you and you realize what it is that you can bring to this game and to this football team, then we're going to take off and you are going to take off.
Well, last year I didn't really listen to the coaches as much as I should have or could have. But now, the coaches, they stay on you and they'll never let you slack.
If I see a matchup on a screen, I'm like, look, this guy's going to be playing you all night. You are definitely better than him. You can beat him whenever you want. I want this many catches from you. It's got to happen. And, I'll put that on them, and, that gives them something to strive for in the process. If we're running a certain play and I know that my position, that block is going to be key in springing that play, then I'll put it back on them. Look, guys, we can't score unless you block on this play. This is a touchdown if you do what you're supposed to do.
We tell them that, hey, sometimes you're going to be used, as the primary guy here, as the go-to guy, but other times you're the go-to blocker. You're the go-to decoy guy.
As we mature it up, got stronger in the weight room and stuff like that, we come to know now that we're a good team. We can win games. We can win games together, not by ourselves. It's a we thing.
And you've got to be willing to understand that we matter more than me.
Once you get into their head that, look, this is what you can be, and this is the kind of player that you can be, and you can get your name and everybody can know who you are if you do what you're coached to do. And once they start believing that, that's when the no-name guys start to step up. Your Maurice Reevy and your Kevin Allen and guys that weren't really well known last year, but we knew they were going to be key parts of our team this year.
We just wanted to go out there, get them off the ball so we can get our running backs and the rest of our skill players the ball so they can do their thing.
We treat the offensive linemen around here like they're kings.
It's all about the linemen. Without the linemen, we'll never go nowhere. Without the linemen, we'll never score as many points as we score, drive, how many plays we get down the field. We'll never do that without the linemen, man. So I really love them.
Just did what we were coached to do, showed more heart than they did. They getting on the bus with their head down, and we going back in the locker room and get hyped.
I think when your kids know that you care about them, they go the extra mile for you. Yes, fear is a great motivator, and the kids are afraid and they're scared when they mess up because they don't want to face the wrath of the coach. But at the end of the day, they know that coach, although he may fuss at you, is going to put his arm around you and make you feel better because he loves you. And I think that is what keeps our kids coming back, and that's what makes the kids, go through the brick wall for you.
For instance, I have one guy, and he's our quarterback. Go! Victor Wells, and over the summer I was taking him to practice just about every day, and I kind of felt like he was my surrogate son, and me and him built that relationship where I could talk to him about not just about football, but I talked to him about school, I talked to him about just his life in general, and when we had those talks, he kind of enjoyed it, and so it's kind of like I was a father to him, but in the same time he knows that I'm the coach and he's the player, and we have that relationship built.
They know that these coaches love them as if they were their own sons. And for a 15-year-old kid, that means something special.